Welcome to the first Tensor Tuesday conversation. We're going to give a little time for everyone to get logged on, and we have a couple more speakers that are going to join us. Hello, I see the waves. Thank you. I know there's only a few of you on yet so far, but tell me where you guys are listening in from. We are based out of Las Vegas. Curious to see where everyone is tuning in from.
Oh yeah. My name is Grant, and I'm actually listening from the Philippines. Yeah, I got interested in this topic because I actually just run a space earlier, and it's all about AI generated art as NFT. So yeah, I'm excited for this one.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I see Kenny. I see Kyle. Thank you guys for hopping on. I know we're going to be hearing from both of you. So, I compiled a few different news articles in the AI space that I wanted to share and get some thoughts on. So we'll just dive right in. One of the exciting ones I thought that came up was this Runway AI opening the Gen 3 Alpha most powerful text to video model. I don't know if you guys saw that or saw any of the videos related to that. We've seen a lot of things like Sora, different ones coming out. So it's interesting to see another one out there and the videos that it can create and what it can do. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to play with it or not, but I thought what was most interesting, I mean, it said it had some different improvements being built on a new infrastructure for large scale multimodal training, major improvement in fidelity, consistency, and motion over their Gen 2. And then they said it was a step towards building general world models. Kenny or Kyle, have you heard of that or have any familiarity with that terminology at all?
General world models. No, this is the first time I'm hearing that, but every day I log on, there seems to be like a new acronym or a
Yeah.
new word, right? Just like
Yeah.
cloud days, like there was a new acronym every week. So I haven't heard that one yet.
Yeah. When I read that, I was unfamiliar as well, so I had to do a little bit of research on it. So I'll read the definition that I found, and then we can maybe discuss what that means or if they're just making up stuff. So it says a general world model is an AI system that builds an internal representation of an environment and uses it to simulate future events within that environment. Research in world models has so far been focused on very limited and controlled settings, either in toy simulated worlds like a video game or narrow contexts, such as a world model for a driving system. The aim of the general world models will be to represent and simulate a wide range of situations and interactions like those encountered in the real world. What, and then it just goes on to talk about all the things. So, what I wanted to ask you guys based on that, is that something that already exists? Are they putting new terminology on something we already have? Or what is needed to build something like what they're discussing?
Well, if I could speak for that, I think this is kind of extension of building multimodal models, right? So instead of just passing, let's say, an image to continue consistency across scenes, right? If I have a character, I want to carry from one scene to another, I'll have an image of said character. And that's one way to ensure that the generated scene has continuity from the previous scene. Now, I've seen some of the videos coming out of the new Alpha Gen, and some of them are kind of hilarious. You get some really good, wonderful panning shots. And I saw one where I think they had a gladiator fighting a lion, and the lion literally pulls out a sword and starts wagging it around. So, but not only did it not understand the context of what fighting a lion meant, but the sword physics were completely off, right? Now, I actually got my bachelor's in physics, over a decade ago, but it's very hard for AI to kind of learn physics just from looking at other videos. So, in addition to be passing text to describe the scene or an image to help bring more consistency, we're going to have to bring in some information about the physics of the world, right? This might be generating a wireframe mesh, for instance, and feeding that as part of the input. That could be an entire wireframe for a city skyline, for instance. If I want to shoot scenes with Seattle consistent in the background, I may need a wireframe of Seattle. So it's not just consistency across aesthetics or characters, but you really would have to feed the world itself into the model as well. So, and same with physics, right? It may be instead of just generating a car jumping off a ramp, it's going to have to generate the physics body of a car jumping off a ramp, and then it feeds that into the model, and now it can build the video on top of those physics bodies.
Interesting. So how far along are we with that kind of tech, or is that something that's been accomplished in a satisfactory way so far, or is there still work to be done here?
I mean, I've seen I think Odyssey was another company in the space that was looking at passing in physical data. So it's not everything in the space is new. I'll be honest. Video generation is only really gotten to an interesting point in the last couple of months. So I wouldn't say it's brand new, but I don't think anyone's really taken that and used it to its full potential. Obviously,
Yeah.
very excited to see where all of that goes. Hey, that's this is very useful, not just with Hollywood, but imagine developing games or cutscenes that can utilize your pre-existing assets. I mean, there's a lot of very interesting things there.
Do you think there's any potential downsides or dangers to using something like this general world model?
I think so. I mean, like with anything that could, like, that could do a lot of good and also generate money. You could also use it for, like, bad. Take nuclear energy, right? You could use it for good, or you could use it for bad. And what what Kyle was saying was exactly on point. And I think that this AI craze, while it is just the beginning, me personally, I feel like this is not what's going to cause like the big explosion of AI. I think robotics is. I feel like once you have like a robot, which is just going to be an edge device, right? Is able to talk remotely to a data center, to have it, be trained or inferenced remotely, over whatever kind of protocol. That is going to be the huge next big step, I think, because what Rafael was saying, it doesn't have, like, basically the computer is trying to simulate what is it like to do something before it actually does something, just like a person, like what is it like to go to college? It's never been to college. So you try to like draw from what you know from other school experiences, right? And you try to simulate what it's going to be like on your first day of college without you having experienced it. Now with a robot, right? A robot, if you just have one straight out the factory, right? It's never been in a car accident before or anything like that. Now, say you put it in a car accident. Now it knows what the visual cues are for a accident. It knows what's going to happen in the car when the car gets smashed. It's going to have more context now. Or when next time you simulate something, it's going to have more to pull from. And I feel like that's going to be the big my God, because now we're going to have something in our physical world that's able to do something that doesn't just exist inside of a box in a data center. It's using what's the stuff inside the box in a data center to actually do stuff in our world, like, rebuild the bridge that fell, or, direct traffic around construction zones and stuff like that.
And how far do you think we are from that being a reality?
I don't think we're that far. Because I was hella wrong about ChatGPT and AI being here. I mean, a lot of people in the space still were like 5 years out from that, and it just showed up in the middle of winter and was like, "Hey, ChatGPT's here." So I feel like since we already have robots, think about the Boston Dynamics robot, right?
Mm.
So it's able to do a lot more things now without being connected to wires and stuff like that. I feel like within the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to see some physical manifestations of quote unquote bots or edge devices that are going to like be a lot smarter than they are now.
Yeah.
Smarter Waymo cars, a lot smarter Tesla vehicles. Just everything is going to have a lot more context.
That's
Yeah.
funny you brought up the Tesla vehicles. Oh, sorry, I'll just let you get to that. Sorry. We were just talking the other day how Teslas are already pretty smart. They just should be smart enough to take themselves into the shop. We don't have to worry about any of that anymore.
Yeah. And a new one should drive itself out to you while yours is being fixed.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'll be honest though, I was lucky enough to be in SF the other week when they greenlit the Waymo program. I think it was like the morning after I got there, the app went live for everybody. But yeah, you would. I think there was a parking lot maybe 4 blocks away from where we were staying in the Mission District. And yeah, it was just full of Waymos. So I'm pretty sure that's where the cars went to get themselves serviced.
There you go. Yeah, that was the other thing that this article brought up for this generative world model. Also, you guys, is that a made up terminology? Because is that just a name for something we already have, or is this something that's a real term?
I mean, there's always a marketing spin on some of this stuff, so it's hard to say whether that's the derivative or an original term there.
Absolutely.
I'd have to look it up. But to kind of bridge Kenny's point too, I think robotics, are definitely a useful physical manifestation of a lot of the AI technologies coming out. But we're talking here about adding meshes, and information about a simulated world to provide consistency to generated video. That same exact concept is applied when dealing with robotics, right? Instead of a simulated mesh, you're simply feeding sensor data, for instance, LiDAR data. Now that can be fed into, transformer-based models as well. Arguably, it'd be, hypermodal, you have sensor fusion, many numbers of different inputs that can go into it.
Right. Just like a human being, right? We're hypermodal. We have to be super aware of a lot of things all at once, and we're constantly updating. Oh, I know a new thing now, and we, use that to continue living.
Yeah, interesting. Alex, I saw that you had your hand raised. Would you like to jump in and add something?
Yeah, hey there, wonderful folks. I'm going to be glad to see you, I guess, in a couple of days. I have the flight tomorrow to New York. But regarding the conversation, super interesting. And by the way, what I wanted to add, right, regarding the whole robotic stuff, you guys are absolutely correct. I think this is the next step, in terms of like implementing AI to help, I guess, with robots. But I don't know, many of you saw that news with the Neuralink patient that he was talking in an interview of being able to control the Optimus robot using the Neuralink, which is huge if you stop and think about it. Like I saw this news, I think it was on Twitter a couple of days ago, right? And he was also saying that this can be possible like in the next few months or year, which is crazy, to think that we live in the same timeline where we could potentially control robots with our thoughts, because this man is already, for example, playing chess, but just like with his thoughts based on the Neuralink chip. And robots, I guess, can be used, I guess, in a similar way. At least that's what he claimed. Something else connected to robotics that I've been seeing around popping up more and more are these remote workers controlling these robots that are doing actually manual tasks. Like putting the bottles of milk in the fridge, doing construction work. And that's pretty interesting because I think this will come in different stages, right? So at the moment, we're having these remote workers putting these robots to work. But why the next step would be simply, where the robot, by using AI, will learn what these people are doing and then will essentially replace them. Like it will not need human supervision anymore. They will be able to work 24/7 based on their learning, which is going to be a very interesting time to live in, because I think by 2030, at that point, what do we do as humans, right? If robots work for us 24/7 doing pretty much everything. It's an interesting food for thought, I think, based on what I saw, the latest updates in the industry.
It is. It is a lot. That's very interesting. And as soon as you said that, I started thinking about, all the Pentagon found out about this, all the military applications. Like, you could have one guy control like a whole swarm of like robotic devices. So that's really, really interesting.
But they will have multiple applications, right? If you stop and think about it, because like that's the thing. This guy was thinking, oh, I can control an Optimus robot. Like, of course, like people are going to start thinking, okay, can I control multiple ones? Can I get them to, do agriculture? Can I get them to do whatever you can think at this point? Because you know how it is with AI, like the sky is the limit. People just need to use more of their imagination to basically put the stuff to work. So exciting times.
Yeah, I also, once again, if a human can control an Optimus robot via a neural interface, imagine what that could do for video games, right? It doesn't necessarily, the end result, end host doesn't need to be a robot necessarily. It could be a virtual object, right? So if this is possible in the near future, it could be 2 years from now, I don't have a controller for entertainment, right? I am putting on a Neuralink interface, and I'm able to control my avatar with full, 3D physics simulation as though it was an extension of my own body. Beyond obviously, maybe that's what we do when the robots take over, Alex. We'll all just be Jack to the Matrix. Or
You can just think about your code and it'll like just write and it'll probably still be full of bugs.
I saw, I don't know if it was the same person you were talking about, Alex, but it was an interview with that same person that had the Neuralink chip, and he said he had an unfair advantage in video games when he was like competing against people, and saw it going to eventually like competitions in the video game space would have to be separated between people with chips and people without to make it fair.
Yeah, absolutely, man. This is fascinating again if you stop and think about it, because I mean, what is the fastest input method than simply your thoughts, right? Instead of using a joystick or a keyboard, the fastest way is just you think and the character reacts. So the applications here are like huge for a lot of things. We're thinking, here in video games, but also again for like, army scenarios, for military, where they can be used to fly these drones or some stuff like that, right? With very skilled operators. For example, this patient here, right? This is a man that's not particularly skilled at this kind of stuff because he's the first one that we have. But imagine somebody that's actually, we find out that they are gifted in using these technologies, and then they can control, like, I don't know, 10 robots at the same time. That is pretty huge. And we're not talking about 2050, 2100. The guy's talking the next months or year, which is wild.
Yeah. Hard to imagine what that's like. Like you said, Kenny, you don't know what college is like until you go. It feels like this with all this, the way AI and robotics are rapidly progressing. We don't know exactly what it's like. We can imagine, but we don't know.
Yeah, I think the Neuralink situation is very interesting too. If you can provide a proper interface to the human brain, it is able to adapt to it as well, right? So if you can give control of a robot that's not bipedal, well, you like to say, it could be a drone, maybe it's a crane. I mean, it could be any number of physical bodies, quote unquote, to be controlling. Given enough practice, a human brain will learn how to use it. You could have a third arm attached to mechanical arm attached via a belt, right? And you can learn how to have a third arm, for instance. So, I mean, the sky's the limit with.
Especially for space flight, space travel, and all that kind of stuff.
Nice. Man, we could talk about this forever. We may have to come back to this topic, but I wanted to move on to another one that we had brought up. And this is especially with you in mind, Alex, and what you're doing. So maybe if you go into answer, you can tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're calling in from, and what you're working on. But this is an interesting article I saw in Retool regarding AI adoption in business. So there was a poll taken across all roles, teams, and seniorities in several different businesses, and a small percentage of them, about 4%, felt that the company was over-investing in AI. And then about 42% thought it was just right about investing in AI, and 40.5% said not enough investment in AI. So I wanted to pose the question to you guys. Do you think that companies today are making use of AI in the best way? If so, explain what that looks like. And if not, how can they improve in this area? Yeah.
Right. I think that's referred to me. I can answer, but just to give some context, because I didn't present myself when I joined this space, because I know, like we met in Las Vegas. I am basically like an AI productivity educator and consultant. I've been, studying chatbots since 2018 for my master's studies, but I've also been tinkering at the end of the day with AI since, November 2022, and just trying to put it to work in the simplest way possible, but the most practical way. So what I use for myself, to win back time, to get some results with various workflows, prompt engineering, all this good stuff, then I essentially gave it to other companies by doing consulting for them, by doing workshops, and essentially upskilling people, either entrepreneurs, small teams, or, B2B, this kind of stuff. Now, regarding to what you said, I can give you a bit some, observations from my experience. What's happening is that a lot of the companies, there are smart people there that are not leveraging AI because nobody's sharing information between them, which was interesting to notice. Because you see, a lot of people out there, they're kind of hoarding the information, where they have their databases, they save their prompts, their workflows. Nobody's sharing it between the teams, and that's why they're not really benefiting to the maximum from these tools most of the time. This is one of the scenarios. Another one I noticed is people just avoid it. Like, keep in mind, we here on Twitter are actually a small bubble of enthusiasts who, talk about this every day. But very often when I go out there, right, and I have rooms of, for example, I do public speaking, I have rooms of like 50 people, and I ask them, how many of you know ChatGPT, right? And pretty much everybody raised their hand. How many of you use Claude or Gemini? 3 to 4 hands raised. So people know almost nothing about other, state-of-the-art models that are actually quite decent at what they do, especially Claude lately. So That's something that you have to deal with. Something else that I noticed, one of the best tools out there that I use daily, like Perplexity, and ask people, do you know it? And people are like, no, what is that? So this is just simple stuff, right? But it goes to show you that people, they don't invest time in this. They heard about it, but they don't put it to work. They're not benefiting from this. And I guess that's where these statistics come from, where some companies, they're dedicating some resources and upskilling their employees or addressing this new change, right? It's like giving your employees like a course on Excel. But instead, like in 2024, it's not Excel, it's AI, right? So some companies are just ignoring this and people know nothing, or they try to do their best to get ahead. Some companies address this and they get upskilled, and that's why they're building internal GPTs, some chatbots. They have their own workflows, dedicated knowledge bases and stuff like that. So what's happening is you're starting to see the first signs of the differences between them, where companies are AI enhanced and they can do the work of like 20 people with a team of 5. And then you have those other companies who are like, they didn't invest time and resource into this. They don't necessarily know what to do with it. And their workers are kind of falling behind because then, when you actually meet those power users and you see what they achieve when they work together with AI, they can work much faster and better than a normal employee. And when you multiply this by 5, by 10, based on the size of the team, differences are very significant, very significant.
Yeah, interesting. So you mentioned like customized chat GPT and stuff like that. In what cases do you think a customized LLM is a good idea for a company or a business? And maybe Alex or Kenny or Kyle, you can speak to this, but I know that takes a lot of work to build and train. So in what case would that be something beneficial to a company?
Very niche companies, in like medical fields and things like that, legal, right? Like for example, you can ask ChatGPT or Gemini or whoever for legal advice, but I wouldn't recommend it. Because whatever it comes back with, like who knows? But if you have one that was specific to, legal, think in the future lawyers won't have to hire as many or any, uh, uh, their assistants. I'm spacing on the name.
Paralegals.
But correct, paralegals, because they may have an app or some kind of assistant that says, hey, I looked at our case and I found other cases with precedent. Here's are the pages, here are the quotes, and blah, 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 way faster than a paralegal is going to be able to. And it could do that very fast with multiple cases. And, yeah, there are cases where LLMs would be very, very, very specific. Again, it's military and stuff. And then you're going to have the general one that's going to be available for like you and I. I feel like I'll probably get more regulated as we go along. For example, like you can't just go into Claude and type in what materials do I need to build a dirty bomb, right? It's not going to let you do that. But if you did that ChatGPT, it'll give you some stuff. So I feel like a lot of that's going to change as we go forward.
Yeah. I see Cognitive Computations has your hand raised. Would you like to contribute?
Yeah, this is Eric Hartford.
Hey, welcome.
TensorWave and Cognitive Computations is my open source collective. And I just wanted to comment about, because I'm really excited about AMD, what AMD is doing as far as consumer cards. And I just posted a link where there's a dual slot AMD card that can be used in like you can put multiple of them in one machine. And the reason why this is significant is the concept, the idea of an AI appliance, and like having an AI appliance in your home that can run like bigger models, bigger than what you can run on a desktop computer. So like, for example, the one Tiny Box, they came out with one that has AMD GPUs in it, and it's much cheaper than the one with NVIDIA. And so it's more accessible for a household or a small business than what the NVIDIA is putting out. So I'm excited about this kind of prosumer level, what's in between what a high end could get with a household, and also like what you can get as a business on the cheap end. And that's what AMD hardware enables. So yeah, this is something I wanted to call out.
Yeah, thank you. Alex, I saw your hand raised. Did you want to say something on this?
Yeah, also, so regarding the topic, right, when we talked about customized GPTs and stuff like that, I mean, there's two important distinctions, though, that we should make, right? If we're talking about like fine-tuned models, that is one thing, of course, for, as we were talking, I think Kenny was mentioning, for specific implementation, right, with very, yes, niche stuff. But what I'm also referring to is simply like the GPTs, those little agents that you can build with ChatGPT, which is nothing fancy, apparently. But what Professor Ethan Mollick found out, like he's a quite famous professor at management at Wharton, and he, based on his studies, found out that actually in these bigger companies that are being upskilled to use AI, there's a lot of these employees who essentially built these internal GPTs and they're sharing it between colleagues, right? And we're not talking about like something very like, how can I say, fine-tuned or something similar. Just like, so for example, something that helps you with brainstorming for a specific department, something that can give you ideas how to contact specific clients. So these are all those little, implementations of AI that makes them a bit smarter, a bit faster, and they're sharing it with each other, and it allows them to grow like at a faster pace, which I found fascinating. And this was like the observations of basically like Professor Mollick, which I found interesting because I thought GPTs are not that powerful, but companies seem to be using them internally and building them a few workers.
Yeah. So you're talking about when you can get onto ChatGPT and build your own little chatbot that's gonna brainstorm topics for my next novel or help me come up with ideas, and then you can specify what you want it and how you want it to talk to you. Is that what
Exactly.
you do?
Exactly. And you can also like add a little knowledge base there. You can even get them to take actions, if you know a bit of coding. So that's why I'm saying they can be deceptively simple, but also more advanced if you know what you're doing and if you have like specific, information from your company that can be
Is
used.
that the one you built that was cursing you out to get you motivated?
And yeah, that was a specific implementation. Yeah, I guess that one has like kind of very niche stuff. And there's another one actually that was like teaching me how to steal a car. And I'm curious because we have cognitive computations with us, and they say we make AI models Dolphin. That one uses Dolphin 2.9. Did you guys build that one? Like I'm using it in like open source on my local machine. I'm just super
Yeah,
curious to know. That
yeah,
is super cool, man. That works
that was
great.
me.
You teach me how
I,
you teach me how to steal a car. It's
Well,
great stuff.
I mean, that's not the purpose. The purpose of Dolphin is really to decouple alignment from the AI inference. So you can have an engine an AI inference engine that can be aligned to whoever is deploying it, and that necessarily means to make that inference model to be uncensored so that the censorship can be layered on top of it. So yes, it's true that if you just use Dolphin all by itself, yes, you can generate toxic content. But that's not why I built it. I built it to enable use cases that are being prevented by overly zealous alignment that's coming from the likes of OpenAI and Claude.
Absolutely. So that's why I was joking, of course, with the stealing car stuff, but it's great stuff, because it's actually nice to see some people out there working on, like uncensored AI, or like, of course, it's not like I'm using it to build bombs, but it's nice to see, that you have an AI that actually answers to all of your questions instead of holding your hand and saying like, no, this is not okay to ask. No, I'm not going to answer this. I mean, you know, it's a bit sometimes too much control and censorship, I guess, with these models sometimes.
Kyle, I saw your hand up for quite a while and it just went down. Did you have anything to add, or has the time passed?
Oh no, it's good. Topics evolve. Yeah, I think on the idea of censorship, it can be very kind of interesting, right? Because it's easy to get around a lot of these guardrails that larger companies like to put in. And it kind of comes back to the question, how much of this is really intended to make a foolproof model, quote unquote? Because I really don't believe you can make a foolproof, safe, black box LLM. You're going to need layers on top of that. So I agree with Eric there. But how much of that is just liability, right? So when something happens with one of these models, these larger companies who trained it can then point at it and say, well, we did all this moderation training, into the training set. And, we did our part to make it safe. So that's not legally on us.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's the motivation. This plausible deniability thing.
I wanted to go back to something that you were saying, Kenny, when we were talking about more of the fine-tuned models that LLMs that enterprises could incorporate. We're talking about legal. I've heard it being used for medical, lots of different ways. What risks do hallucinations and other glitches that are still in these pose to these types of use cases? Sean, I see your hand raised. Go ahead and jump on in.
Oh, well, this may kind of go with that topic in the use of AIs by companies. And this kind of goes back to what Alex was talking about earlier. I was more interested specifically in if Alex or if anyone else thinks that training AI for employees for productivity use should be something that companies are doing proactively for their employees. Or is this something that employees should be training themselves on as a base skill for the future? And kind of secondarily with that is if an employee goes and trains themselves up on this and they're an avid user of AI assistance tools for their job or role, is that something that they should be disclosing to their employer in the course of business?
Great question, Sean. Alex, you have a thought?
Yeah, so there's actually something called shadow AI that's been discussed, I think, in some articles that went quite a bit viral a couple of months ago. Because indeed, what's happening is those companies that do not provide, upskilling like resources for employees, what happens is the employees who are motivated and ambitious enough, they of course go by themselves and figure this stuff out, right? They contact people like me, like other people, they test stuff out, and they become power users. Definitely, it's something that I would recommend to everybody to start getting accustomed to and using it. Like, don't wait for your company to pay you, like upskilling with AI. It's good to be proactive because a lot of resources you can get them for free, right? So at the end of the day, it's just up to you to try them out. But second thing that I wanted to say that like there's also currently a bit of stigma sometimes at like some bigger companies, right? Or like if employees use it, either colleagues will say it's like, hey, but that's like kind of cheating. Or if their managers see it that they can essentially do like 2 times the output, then some people are going to say, well, now I just get more work to do. So to be completely honest with you, Sean, it's a tricky topic currently because it has pros and cons. The employees who are able to leverage this, they can work faster. But what happens is some people just they don't show it, because if you show that you can actually do triple the output, then you're going to get triple the work, right? It becomes the new standard. So
Yeah.
it's not an easy topic for sure, and this current iteration of how AI is right now in this year 2024. But yeah, this is one of the things that I was like noticing with a couple of teams where people have like very interested people and they ask me questions, but then they don't actually show it that much when in their work. Other people instead, with companies where the company culture, for example, is more open, where there's more collaboration, they do share between them, some of these tools, even prompts, smarter ways to work, and they do get the benefits, because imagine, humans working together, enhanced by AI, they can do a lot more. Like even for myself, I essentially do the work of like 5 people by myself because I can do like graphic design, I can do a good amount of copywriting, automation, and other stuff, right? So if I can do it, a lot of other people can do it too. The real question is, are they disclosing this? A lot of them currently not. That's why there's this thing called shadow AI, which is, yep, I find interesting.
I'm definitely going to have to look that up. I haven't heard about the shadow.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I know it exists. I know it does because just the way he explained it. But it's super interesting. I feel like that's going to lead to more layoffs because like of Alex or me or you could do the work of 5 people, right? And we're at a startup or a big business. Well, we need to trim headcount. We could probably get rid of like 40 to 60% of the people who are just like barely coasting, and then like keep our superstars, let them openly use AI, and then we could go gangbusters. That's what Nvidia is doing. Like everyone there uses AI to make their models and job better, and look at their stock price and look how happy everyone is. They posted a post yesterday. One of their chip guys, they said, we have a hardware problem. So we at NVIDIA are trying to design a way that our chips can come off the factory line and basically iterate over themselves automatically, so we could just all take more vacations more often. Like they literally said that. So like they're all on board on this, using AI to move faster and not having imposter syndrome within the company, so people aren't scared to say, hey, here's my prompt, or I use AI for this. They're just assuming that everyone is using it. And if you're not, that's actually a problem.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense when you're working in the AI industry. Also, vacation. That's what we're all going to do when robots take over. Alex, you have something to add?
The vacation part, I wish that was true. One of another things, for example, that I was noticing is that I talk with a couple of friends, for example, like they are business owners, And I remember like one of them told me like, if they're not using AI, I'm not going to hire people, which is becoming an interesting thing, right? When we have some part of the population that didn't even try it out. They just heard about ChatGPT, they know nothing. And then you have the entrepreneurs, the business owners who are even like, they're already starting to say like, if this person that I'm going to hire, they're not using it, like that I'm interviewing, right, for a position, if they're not using AI out of the box, let's put it this way, they're immediately disqualified. So that's what, this is the trend I'm noticing. It's like, AI is becoming the new advanced Excel skill, something like that, right? Like, or like English proficiency. Like if you don't have it, it's becoming a handicap. Last year it was more of a plus, or like, hey, you're using AI tools, that's interesting. This year's like, oh, you're not using AI stuff? Huh. How productive can you be though? So, we live in interesting times.
What's a pretty decent looking AI stack for an employee at a business? And I know that's a really broad question, but what does that look like, and how functional is the average AI stack that people are using, would you say?
If you say AI stack, for example, like it depends on, of course, on what their tasks are, right? Because all of them have specific repetitive tasks. But I mean, if you do research, definitely you would not use Google search, you would use Perplexity. It's much faster, you get answers, you can make a lot of stuff with that content that you're getting. So it helps you work faster. You can do, for example, like prompt generation with Claude. They have this tool that can create mega prompts for you. So you don't actually have to waste time. So there's various ways to create powerful prompts to make your job easier. You can even now, for example, start adding automation and AI with Zapier that allows you to, for example, you receive emails, it contains some keywords, the AI can already draft for you like an answer. Now, these are just examples, right, of the stuff that I've been implementing for some of my clients and talking with them to raise productivity. But there's a lot of ways there to find, like 3 to 5 hacks for a specific task or like work that you have, and you would be able to win back, a couple of hours per day. And this can make, of course, a significant impact, because then you can either invest more time in doing higher quality work, right, avoiding the repetitive stuff. You can either chill a bit more if you're already, at your limit, if you're stressed, if you're slowly burning out, or you can invest it, in doing some new stuff that you haven't thought before. So the skill stack, I would say, it's important to start using AI for research, important to start using these AI assistants for like brainstorming, right? To do self-coaching, I've been using them, for example, with sales and stuff like that, stuff that I don't know how to do. I, for example, take call transcripts, I tell it my ideas, and I essentially go on conversations with it because it costs me nothing. It's free. You often get very solid insights, especially if you're a beginner, and you learn much faster new skills that you kind of need in this new economy, where like there's not anymore that figure of a person that does 1 to 2 things. You need to be a very good generalist in quite a few amount of tasks, and essentially AI allows me to be a bit better in stuff that I'm not that good. One of the examples is like even coding, right? I don't do coding, but I can go to ChatGPT 4 and help me build a bit of coding so I can create my automations for Zapier or for make.com. That's a huge unlock, as an example.
I think you should teach a workshop or something, Alex. It sounds like you know what you're doing.
Yeah. I'm gonna see if in New York it's a good place to do something like that. I have a couple of like 20 workflows in mind. Let's see how this will go.
Yeah,
And for those,
I just subscribe to his Twitter right now, so I'm like,
yeah, for those of you that don't know, there's an event this week coming up in New York called Imagine AI Live, where Alex will be teaching a workshop on how to implement what he's doing. So we are looking forward to that. I will also be attending, so we'll have some good content from there. We have a contribution from the audience. It looks like Willie, you have something to add. Would you like to ask a question or make a contribution?
Yeah, thank you so much having me. Very interesting and important topic, shadow AI, and it's in the dynamics of change. We are in the times of confusion, disorientation, where things are in adaptation. And I just share here now, I'm trying multitasking, a thing which was published yesterday, actually, and it is on CIO.com about exactly the issue. I have not read it, but I saw it. It is from yesterday, so it might be interesting. And it has to do with our dilemma now. We have a new productivity tool. And if we are in the sigmoidal curve as freelancers or employees adapting first, like early adapters do, then we are in the advantage to have less work for the same price. And but the standard is changing, as Alex said. Yeah, that's the point. Because many techies, many nerds have no clue about economics. Sorry to say this, that after a while, things are in adaptation. The advantage is diminishing every day. Because like 2 or 3 months ago, we had this post on X, like, now I only work half of the time or even less. But this is naive because, as Alex said, the standards will change. And then it's like having electrical light, and you can work late at night. When I had another space today, I was attending a space where I brought the same example, that when electricity was spreading, there was a rollout in the civilized world, everything changed. Like the daylight was there at night, and to the disadvantage of many workers, they had to work in the night, which is not very healthy. Just an example that we had some revolutions like this in everything, society, work, how to do business. But after a while, everyone is in adaptation, and some advantages are neutralized, so to speak. Yeah. That was what I wanted to contribute here, that we should not be naive, but understand the dynamics, that it's often a sigmoidal, an S curve, so to speak, of adaptation. And you cannot extrapolate your advantage into the future. But if everyone is having the advantage, then you will be just in a new standard situation, a new normal, as you call it, a new normal. Yeah.
Absolutely. There are definitely pros and cons, and I like that new normal. I like your illustration of linking it to the invention of electricity and light. Kyle, you've had your hand up for a minute. Let's get your thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's can be a big issue, right? So if you can keep riding that wave, keep being on top of stuff, that can always give you an advantage point for so long. I also wanted to go back a little previously in the topic. We were talking about all these different tools and how we can kind of superpower or supercharge people's productivity. I kind of just want to pitch in to say the importance of interface, right? I know I kind of get like massive screen fatigue throughout the day, working 8 to 12 hours a day, whatever, on at a startup trying to get everything spun up. I find myself got into the GPT 4.0 camp, so it's been nice to kind of turn that on and just have conversations with an AI. I'm literally kind of get to close my eyes, relax a bit, but I can still continue to learn. It's able to do, obviously, maybe not as well as Perplexity, right? In-depth indexing of internet information, but I can kind of get broad strokes, do market research, and kind of do some of the data gathering I don't really have the time or the mental energy to when staring at a screen.
Absolutely. Alex?
Yeah, so by the way, I just wanted to mention, Carl, super smart use of AI that people are literally sleeping on. This is one of the things I'm going to teach at the workshop in New York, because it has so much potential, the ability to, instead of typing every time, which gets really boring, just to talk with it. I go on walks on the beach, and I talk with it to get insights on how my business is progressing, how can I do better with my team. So definitely can unlock a lot of usability with the voice function. Something else though, to go a moment back also to like what Willie was saying, by the way, my regards to Willie, great talker. He's been in a few of my spaces, a very smart man. Something else that we're noticing, I'm noticing is like, I know this will be a bit controversial, but currently AI helps smart people become smarter, and people who are like lazy, it kind of makes it a bit worse for them. What do I mean with this? Because you see,
Yeah.
no, this is interesting because I was making a post about this like a couple of months ago, and it went pretty big because I was saying, to me, AI changed my brain, literally the way I think. What does that mean? If you stop and think about it, right, with prompt engineering, what happens is every time, if you do proper prompts, right, if you write long ones, useful ones that give you good output, what do? You sit down and you think hard. You're thinking, what am I expecting for an output? What is my context here? What action should be taking? So you're actually thinking deeper. Now, if you do this for months on end, and I've been doing this for like 1.5 years, you start to change. Like I noticed how my thought patterns changed when one lady mentioned this to me. It's like, you think like you're prompting me. Like you stop and you think like in the conversation, the next steps, what do you want to get? And this makes sense, right? Because you're thinking deeper. And I've been noticing also with some of my friends. Now, the opposite of this though are people who like start to over rely on AI, who instead of putting in more effort thinking in a higher level, more creative, more insightful, more innovative, they're going just like, hey, ChatGPT, do this for me, copy paste. And I see it all the time on LinkedIn. They're like ruining their brands. It's very lazy. So what happens is it's actually making you like, I don't want to say it, but it kind of makes you a bit dumber than before, right? Because you are essentially delegating your intellectual processes to the AI, but not everything should be delegated. That's the thing. And people sometimes some people are just like use it as a crutch and they become lazier and lazier with time in their thinking, which I think can become a problem with time. This is just some food for thought, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Great points. Kyle?
No, that's a very interesting point, Alex. It kind of emphasizes your tendencies that before you were using AI. Let's say, obviously, productivity. We're riding a curve, right? Everyone's becoming more and more productive. Do you think this would kind of polarize the working class into two camps? Like, are we going to kind of see a segmentation of the populace based on how they approach AI?
Absolutely, yes. I can already tell you this is happening where I see people who are using it and they're like starting side businesses, they're like doubling their income, they're doing a lot more stuff that they weren't able to do before. I mean, to be completely honest with you, I think I'm one of these examples where like AI allows me to do the job of 5 people, which allowed me to create a business, to scale it, and go travel the world, which before it was impossible because I was alone in doing all of this, right? And then you have the people who are like not using it, they don't put in the effort to learn this stuff. And what happens is they become fearful. They get fired because they're not competitive. They're not productive enough, considering the change of the workforce landscape, as Willie was mentioning. So you do have like AI fearmongers, you do have AI power users, and the differences will become more and more noticeable. Because compared to last year, right, when you're seeing how much faster people progress with the help of these AI tools or simple implementation, I mean, it becomes significant. We're not talking here about like a 5% productivity increase. We're talking about like 30%, 50%. And the more time passes, the more it compounds. Also, keep in mind that with AI, it's not like there are some people out there who never opened ChatGPT. They tried it once, the 3.5 version, November 2022. It sucked, and they never touched it again. Now, if you've been using it since then, right, to help you write faster, do your reports better, do data analysis, do you think you have a huge advantage over those people 1 year later? I think yes, huge advantage. Because not only you've been following it, you've been applying it, you're becoming more advanced in it. That allowed you to reach new levels. And where are those people? Still at the same level. They barely open ChatGPT. The difference is huge.
Well, it looks like we have a couple in the audience that have something they want to add, and we are trying to get on to our next point. So I will add you as a speaker, but if you can keep it somewhat brief, and we can get those addressed and moved on to our last topic. Darby B.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having the space, and I appreciate everybody's contribution. I was listening to Alex Northstar, and I am one of those lazy people. Not really lazy per se. I mean, I started in with Chat GPT a while ago when it first came out, and I was all excited to use it. And then Grap came out, and you had to be a select few to get that. I'm trying to figure out. Well, let's put it this way. I'm not as advanced as you guys all are. I can't. I don't understand when you guys talked about prompts like a while ago. I was like, what the heck is a prompt? I mean, I didn't know, I didn't understand, and I'm not stupid. I'm pretty computer literate. I just don't know the tech terms, and I don't know the methodology and the proper use of it, I guess. But I mean, when I do rely on ChatGPT or any of the other open AIs, I mean, of any of the other AIs, it's to gain information, not necessarily for artwork, not necessarily for poetry or writing or some of the other stuff. I really don't even understand everything, all the capabilities that it can provide.
Those are great points. Yeah, no, I totally hear you. And I think an option, definitely follow the people that have been speaking in this chat. They'll have good resources. And then everyone that's in our spaces right now, if there are people that you follow on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, can you drop their names in our chat there on Twitter right now under this space so that Darby can see those and give them all a follow? There is a ton of free information, free content, lots of good stuff that's out there. YouTube, here on Twitter, LinkedIn, lots of good resources. So there's definitely a way to build up your arsenal of tools that you can use without having to invest straight away. And then it looks like we are just about the time of wrapping up. We have gone quite a while on all these topics. Any last thoughts from Alex, Kenny, or Kyle, our speakers for the day? Yeah, go ahead.
I can, yeah, for me, so just again, for the lovely audience that came here, by the way, great space, super interesting, full of, nice people, folks. So feel free to share the space with other friends if you enjoyed the conversation. Definitely would help out everybody. Also, in terms of like, if we're talking about AI productivity and education, just start simple. Like, you don't need, for example, one of the things I can tell you, right? You hear this term prompt engineering. It sounds super fancy and scientific. It's not. It's just simply how you talk with the AIs, right? And there are a couple of strategies that will help you to get a bit better results. All of this you can find on the internet, pretty accessible. If not, you can just DM me and I share all this stuff like for free, pretty much a lot of my resources. But again, keep it simple. Like, you don't have to complicate your life with fine-tuning models and building complex automations. Find out a couple of tasks that you do it repeatedly every day and try to put AI to work for you, right? So go to ChatGPT and say like, hey, I do this every day 20 times. Could you find out some ways for me to do it easier or faster? And that will already give you some actually interesting results. Start small and learn it day by day, just like 50 minutes per day. And it can guarantee, like, in the span of a couple of weeks, you're going to be quite ahead, more than you expect. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Awesome. Great. There was one topic we didn't get to today. It was about Gemini 1.5 Pro and the context window. So we'll save that for our next Tensor Tuesday. We will be back next Tuesday at the same time and have some great conversation for everyone. Easy Core, I see your hand is raised, but we are wrapping up. Please tune in next time or comment to us on Twitter, whatever you were going to say. I'm so sorry that it didn't work out to hear from you. But thank you everyone so much for joining, and we will not see you, but hear you next Tuesday. Thanks, guys.